For those that don't know me, I founded lastminute.com, made.com, and a venture capitalist with Pro Founders Capital. And I am on a host of boards I won't tell you with right now. And I'm an angel investor as well. And let's go for it. I guess why don't we jump right in? So Kevin and Julia Hart's Eventbrite, you all know that. Also, they've got a stunning angel investment track record as well. Why don't we go straight in? Start of Eventbrite, you did it without money, you bootstrapped it. Why did you bootstrap it? I want to understand the corollary between you bootstrapped it amazingly, right? And then you've since gone and raised crazy sums of money. Like, how much you raised?
$200 million to date. We made up for the bootstrapping. So, do you want me to tell the story? Okay. Kevin and I and Renaud Visage founded Eventbrite in 2006, and really the impetus to not raising capital was because in Kevin's previous career as founder of Zoom, XOOM.com, he had raised copious amounts of money from the beginning, and so it was almost an academic decision that we wanted to go at it the other way around and really try to create a lean startup. And so it was just the three of us for the first 2 years, and we spent less than $250,000 in those 2 years getting to the point where we didn't actually need money anymore, and that's when we went out and raised capital. And the history of our capital raising has always been when we didn't need it, which changes the conversation and has been favorable, I guess, for us.
Were there moments in those first 2 years when you thought you were nuts? But going into those first two, Kevin, you had an exit, you'd had some exits by then already, right? So you weren't stressed.
Yeah, it was cheating a little bit. I'd started a company in the late 90s, and we had a modest exit, and then it happened to really very foolishly plow all that money into a late 90s.com, which turned out to be PayPal. So we had a little bit of a cushion, so we cheated a little bit, but it's still, I think, cash or not, when you approach a bootstrapping mode and it's your own money, or you're not taking salaries and you're not and you're watching every penny and you're not spending excessively, just three of us. Renaud took a very modest salary. It becomes almost a game to see how far you can go on little capital.
So, and were there moments when you thought you might just pack it all in, or?
There's certainly up and downs. It's more of it wasn't kind of it was more of just how do we push harder and scale faster. It was this relentless sense of dissatisfaction that we couldn't move faster, and how do we do something more efficiently? How do we make a customer happy? In fact, I think that's one of the most important things of bootstrapping was really just staying very close in front of the customer and making them happy, and not doing it with the sense of urgency of an investor pushing us in the wrong manner.
But did you not worry that somebody would raise a $100 million round or a $50 million round and then just eat your lunch?
It didn't actually dawn on us in the early days, and maybe we were just naive, but because we had no money to gain any distractions, we were just focused on the product and the customers. And so I think in the end, that actually helped us build a better company because we had no extra capital to go out and create a tangential market opportunity or get ourselves in a distracting situation. All we had was our own skill and just the scrappiness to make it happen. And I think that actually was very helpful for us in the beginning. I'd like to point out that since we're married, having one mic is going to be awesome. So I hope that we can...
Going on from that, culture. So I think you've spoken a lot about the culture of the company. And you do some of the things which I guess here, okay, I'll say it, but here they may be seen as slightly corny with the team, but it seems to be working. So how you've focused on the culture? Is it organic, or have you pushed
Brent,
it?
you would die if you were in the Bright Land, as we call it. We had a color games day where everybody was a different color, and you were on this random team of like the team red or team purple, and we all went out to Golden Gate Park and competed against one another in wheelbarrow races and stuff. So it is quite corny, but there's something behind that, which is that we've focused from day one on building a culture that can stand on its own two legs through best of times and the worst of times. And to create a sustainable culture, it has to be created by the people. So our corny culture is a testament to the fact that we've hired apparently corny people. But really it's about how do we make it feel much more like a community. So, some people might say family. I'm a little bit reticent to do that since we are married. That might seem kind of creepy, but it feels like a very strong community. And now it's 370 Brightlings strong around the world, and you've made me all self-conscious now. And 100, so 275 in San Francisco, and then 100 outside of the San Francisco office. So Nashville, London, Melbourne, Dublin, and Mendoza and Sao Paulo. So it's rapidly growing and actually just more globally than ever.
And I mean, am I right in thinking that because you're a husband and wife team and you're in the Valley and entrepreneurs, all your friends are husband and wife teams? So obviously we've got Michael and Zochi, I assume Mark Pincus and his wife, and Mark and Ali, and I assume, I
mean, they didn't, and I think Michael and Sochi Birch are not only some of our closest friends, but our couple co-founder mentors. And we were in a pub 10 years ago, and of course we were in a pub, and over a pint, we asked them, what is your secret? And they said, our secret is to divide and conquer, never work on the same thing at the same time, ever. And I don't think they knew that at the time they were giving us the most useful and valuable advice that we'd ever had, and something that we still do to this day. And also I think it's applicable across any co-founder partnership, or group, rather. I mean, really, why would you want to co-found a company with somebody who has the same skills as you when you can choose someone who has complementary skills and get from point A to point B 2 times faster? And that's what we find in ourselves. That we're fortunate to have that, but then operationally, we never work on the same thing at the same time to preserve, our marriage.
Now, but do you not feel, I mean, have you...
But I'll take the laughs of it.
Have you sort of kicked Kevin out? How do you deal with him slacking and doing all this investing stuff on the side and you're not? Do you not feel that you're working hard on the company and he's relaxing, investing in the next Pinterest? No, not at all.
I mean, Kevin's our CEO, so he gets a lot of pressure put on him. So actually, I kind of get to kick back. But we support each other, and I think that I'll let him speak to this eventually. But I think that he gleans a lot through investing. I mean, we all gain a lot through investing. And I'll tell you a quick funny story because you mentioned Pinterest. There was a time when I begged Kevin not to put. He had invested in the one of the earliest rounds of Pinterest and really invested in Ben. And I really liked Ben, but I thought Pinterest was a really stupid name. Glass House, Eventbrite, let's get real. But I said he wanted to put more money in very shortly thereafter, and I remember going and saying, please don't do it. It's such a stupid name. And we really need to buy a house someday. All my house is in 25 different startups. I just want a house. I think I was pregnant with our second child. I begged him not to invest more in Pinterest, and thankfully he didn't listen to me, but that was the last time we ever had that conversation. So I think there is something really special about finding great entrepreneurs to support, but the secret is that we learn a lot more from them than they do from us sometimes. So.
Kevin, how do you find you balance your time though? Because it's investing. I'm sure your inbox is full of business plans and deals and stuff like that. So I myself find that quite a challenge, just to do the other stuff and then you never get on top of your email.
Well, I have to say I've stepped back a bit recently, and really the way I look at it today is that we have 373 Brightlings that are entrepreneurs themselves, and they're the ones that I'm spending the time mentoring, and so it's wonderfully rewarding. I've had a great period of mentoring really terrific entrepreneurs and learning with these different companies, and turning that inward at this scale and point of the business is critically important. So I look at the team down in Latin America. We have a team in Argentina and Mendoza, and they're very entrepreneurial. It's a company we acquired called Eventios, and there are, if you're familiar with Mercado Libre, it's the eBay of Latin America, and we want Eventios to be the Mercado Libre of of ticketing, essentially. And so that's building a multi-billion-dollar business and mentoring that team to grow that business in Latin America. We have a team that is really out of nowhere, a small team that launched our first reserve seating offering. And as a ticketing company, it's odd that we've never had reserve seating until less than 90 days ago. And this small, scrappy 8-person team came together and put this all together and launched this product on its own, and it's on its own P&L, and it has its own KPIs. And mentoring and guiding and helping that team is wonderful. And that's how we operate Eventbrite. I've seen how other companies operate, and there's right ways, there's wrong ways, and there's many different ways to do it. But we operate it as many autonomous startups, and that's how we keep that sense of ownership, that sense of responsibility, and really having an impact.
I'm just conscious, if people do want to ask from the floor, then just keep going. Or, oh yes, sorry, from this, yes. Okay, shall we pick one? You pick one, we can pick one. Okay, well, I think we've covered some of those.
On finding the first customer when we're bootstrapping is a good one, just because that's, in our case, we all want to build products at scale that can grow so fast up a very steep S curve, and be in the limelight immediately, be a Pinterest or a WhatsApp or so on. But the reality is, I feel in most businesses, you really have to craft the product and craft it with the customers in mind. And so we went out there and spent time with our first customers, the tech crunches. Our early adopters were technology bloggers that were diversifying themselves and building building conference businesses, and so those were really the first customers we serviced, and we spent a lot of time listening to them, thinking about scale and growth, but it was a combination of spending time, face time, and also thinking about scale and the software side, and that's how we really got our first dozen customers.
So I couldn't follow up. I mean, so being serious about, so the $200 million you've got, or I don't know how much is left in the bank, but presumably quite a bit. What did you make you decide? I mean, what's the use of funds for that? It just seems like you're already quite advanced. You've got quite a lot of revenue. What do you need it for? I mean, acquisitions is the obvious one, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that we've always used our capital wisely. So we do have over just about $120 million in the bank, and our burn is actually very small. We're not profitable yet, but it's manageable, and we always know what it takes to get to sort of break even, and that's important to us. So building an efficient business while also scaling it has been something that we've been tremendously diligent about. But I think that for us, it's been about understanding what we need to scale to achieve our grand vision, which is really to be ubiquitous with all live experiences. So we all know that we have a long road to travel. Right now, Eventbrite is doing quite well in the long tail of ticketing. So gatherings like tonight, and long tail, I mean cooking classes, seminars, workshops, music festivals, wine expos, pretty much anything you can imagine gathering for is on Eventbrite in some capacity. And that's the big idea, is that actually that market is quite large. For us, we've raised money to not only be prepared for a challenging time and to scale the team, but also to grow internationally and really build out this idea of the world's marketplace of live experiences, which I think is really kind of a much bigger business than we ever thought we could build. And then also we've had great investors. So most of the latest rounds that we've done have been our inside investors who are extremely bullish about our business and very supportive of us. And we think they got a great deal and we got a great deal. And it's hasn't been very distracting, I guess, to have to go out and raise money.
I mean, just thinking about Europe and London, and I mean, I guess firstly, how have you found expanding across Europe? I mean, are you a pan-European business? I mean, clearly you have a French co-founder, you've got offices, you mentioned some of them across Europe, but how are you finding getting traction in I guess France and Germany, what really
Don't
counts.
you get the badge if you have a French co-founder? We just figured that we're just an in. Yeah. No, I mean, expanding in Europe has been both rewarding and challenging. And I think the headline was that for us, we thought because we have a self-service platform that it's used in last year was used in over 190 countries. We thought when we started to globalize the business that it would just be a cakewalk, and it wasn't. And so I think right off the bat, we realized that we needed to put people local. We need to put people on the ground because our business is global in demand, but it's local in nature. And so for us, we've built the team in London, London being our third largest city in the world after New York and San Francisco, because we could find the talent, because it was a great market for us, and because we could use this as sort of the outlook towards the rest of Europe. Now, we're not going to expand in Europe from London. So it is very clear that we're going to be very local. So we've just put boots on the ground in Dublin. We've seen tremendous amount of traction there. We've actually seen more ticket sales this year alone than the last 3 years combined. So just in the last 6 months, we've done more than the last 3 years combined in Ireland. We've had people on the ground for just 6 months. So we've seen this correlation to being local and really engaging with people. And it sounds so backwards because we're a tech company that you would actually need to engage in person-to-person, communication, but it is how we seed new markets as we get out there and we talk to people. And so, Germany is certainly exciting for us, as are many other European countries, but we'll be methodical and really start replicating this playbook that we've grown over the last year and a half or so. And it's not as easy as we thought it would be, and I guess that's a good thing for us because it's a great challenge.
So I will come to you once. Probably a stupid question, but so Facebook is a platform. So I haven't followed. I should have. Whether you guys are or aren't friend or foe. Are you working with them? Are they the enemy? I don't know.
Well, Facebook, to my knowledge, doesn't kind of truly partner with companies in the sense where they go and sign deals, or maybe they're on the media side or other areas, but they certainly have an API and a platform. And there's the value of the news feed, and gold for us, and the magic, end all be all is to gain more real estate in the news feed. At the same time, Facebook's trying to meter that. What we do have, though, what Eventbrite has, are these wonderful live experiences, and from very early on in the company's history, Facebook became a vector of growth, not with any kind of formal relationship, but really riding off the notion that attendees, that consumers, people going to events, want to share them with their friends. And it was one of those aha moments that you hear about, that as entrepreneurs out in the audience, that you look for in your Google Analytics or your Mixpanel logs, that you look for those, you look for those sources of where are people coming from and why. And we were seeing people coming from the Facebook newsfeed because there's this natural sharing. And then we kind of built a number of different channels, or enhanced that. And Facebook today is still the #1 source of growth.
Just one more quickly. I mean, do you think that you would have had the success you've had if you'd been a London-based company, or do you have those connections in the Valley really helped the business that much? You've talked about learnings from other people, but I don't know whether it's actually there were specific things, specific partnerships, specific things that really made the difference of being in the Valley versus here.
Well, we've been pondering that over the last week, during this week, and talking to different entrepreneurs. And I was very encouraged in meeting so many different startups, and it's wonderful to go around the Shoreditch area and to see these old warehouses and buildings with a dozen startups all camped together, and some incredibly bright engineers and entrepreneurs, and have some incredibly stimulating and insightful conversations. The issue is that the resources of the Valley, the financial, not just investment resources, but all the other resources aren't quite there yet, and so it's a bit I wouldn't say starved, but I would say under-resourced. It feels like perhaps maybe I would hope a couple years behind New York, If you were to step back and look at Silicon Valley took decades to develop. It was first, the defense industry in the early part of the 19th century, and then Hewlett-Packard, and then it was in semiconductors, and then upon semiconductors you had hardware, and then software, and all these different movements layered and built Silicon Valley over a long, long, long period of time. Now, where we are today, this can happen at a much more rapid pace, and I see that happening in locations like New York and London. I would say New York seems to be a bit ahead, but you're following that course. The other side of it is London, or is the UK more like India or China, where you see entrepreneurs going back to those countries to start businesses? And I don't think that's, I think it's very clearly that's not the paradigm. The paradigm there is that you can go back to a very self-contained market and reach 1 billion consumers, as we see with Alibaba or Shamway or others. So I see London in the UK, or London in particular, is more following a kind of growth path of New York.
Talking about life in the Valley, right? Because when we did our Founders Forum New York event, we had Dave McClure and people, a sort of Sean Parker slagging off the Valley brutally, right? And so we had this sort of little competition saying that there really is, there's nothing to do in the Valley. Does that bother you guys? Is that true? Do you find that true? Or?
I think when you're building a company, you become quite immune to everything going around you. So I think for us, we've had, I guess, the fortune of having a company to build and 2 little girls to raise. So we've been not quite distracted by everything going on around us. I think it's better if there isn't a lot to do. We still are laser focused on Eventbrite, and I think sometimes I have to remind myself to look up and look around and see what other people are doing, and really get inspiration from others and from people who've gone before us, and from people who are coming up after us, and really be able to get that inspiration, because there's a lot of dialogue going on in Silicon Valley and San Francisco. There's never a dull moment, that's for sure. But I think that now, having been in this for 8 years, and I wasn't around for the first bubble, now I've seen enough that I've seen.
Around, you're not that young.
No, I wasn't born yet, Brent. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I was in college. All fair. And I remember when we started Eventbrite, we used to walk down the street in San Francisco, and it was a ghost town. And the street, Brandon Street, that our office used to be on, it was just empty warehouses. And Kevin, being the historian that he was, he majored in history, and he was pointing out all the companies, and like Pets.com was like kind of the famous example of what happened, and now
that's what the mascot.
He's obsessed with the mascot. I've tried to throw the puppet away a couple times. Now I'm not going to touch it. But I think my point is that things change quite. They like people come and go so quickly around Silicon Valley, and things change so much that just training your eyes on the horizon and not really getting distracted by what's going on is actually the name of the game. And so yeah.
But the interesting thing about Silicon Valley now is it's taken a Brit to try and distract the people in Silicon Valley. So Michael Birch, our friend, has set up the cool Soho House, the Battery of Silicon Valley. So a British mentality coming to Silicon Valley, maybe. Sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm going to steal some advice from you, if I may. Yeah, you mentioned just now the broad spectrum of events that you obviously cater for at the moment. But in the early days, did you focus on a particular segment to get that early traction going?
So we found our earliest adopters in our peers. As Kevin mentioned, tech events were really the first category that happened on Eventbrite. And it was very mom and pop shop like. I remember getting a call from, I assume everybody here knows the name Michael Arrington. And at that time he was just a blogger, and he said, I want to have a meetup. And then it was, I want to do a conference. And it was literally us at the door with like a guest list, checking people into the conference and really leaning into that one category and using those customers to give us all the feedback that they had. Luckily, they're very vocal, and the tech community has specific feedback to give. But we took that really to heart and helped to build our business in the early days. And then we started to just find the organic traction and kind of what we call the low-hanging fruit. So the categories that we can gain early customers in, we started to just go after and try to build on that.
Discovering organically in that way, obviously, you had the freedom of not raising capital at the same time. Do you think that approach would have worked had you been raising capital, or do you think you would have been pressured to actually go after those ultimate, higher hanging fruit, so to speak?
Well, I think it depends on who you get capital from. So I think one of the things we don't talk about very often is that, you should feel like you have choice in who you raise capital from, and the who is always the most important part. So we've always raised money from people who have been our partners, and honestly, in 8 years, we've never been told what to do. They give us guidance and they support us, but we've never been pushed in one direction or the other, or pressured for that matter.
Other questions from the audience? Yeah, one at the back. Do you want to just shout to speed things up?
Yeah, sure. Comparing Eventbrite as a user, regular user product to Meetup, from a user point of view, the UX is pretty glitchy on mobile. I wonder if you see that as something that you're really working on, and if not, what do you see as the big areas for progress in the brand?
Well, I'm a big fan of, we're big fans of Meetup. We know Scott and the team, New York company, and they have done a very nice job on the mobile side and have been ahead of the curve there. They do, they're purely what we would say kind of consumer to consumer, whereas here you're all facing an audience, or the audience is facing a stage. They're kind of sitting in a circle, as they would describe it, versus an Eventbrite-like experience. We've as a lesson to us all, we have to adapt, and the world is rapidly moving to mobile, and we've got a lot of work to do. I've been told I'm not supposed to say this, but our entire engineering product team have been just working on mobile. All desktop has stopped. We'll pick some of it back after some time, but really just that's a opportunity and also a vast disruption point for us on mobile. So you'll see a lot of changes there. We've already seen just on the responsive on HTML5, we've seen an immense amount of growth in millions of dollars in transactions a month happening on the HTML5 side. But we need to push forward on the native side. We also are, just to continue with that is a wonderful place for us to extend our relationship with consumers, that we have tens of millions of people coming to Eventbrite and creating Eventbrite accounts, and sometimes they don't even remember that they have. And we've done, I would say we've done a strong job at building relationships on the organizer or seller side of the equation. And now we're really focusing our resources. We're really targeting in on the buyer side, or creating this consumer experience. That there's so much interesting content on Eventbrite. How do you find that? How does Eventbrite become that place for consumers to find great things to do across your life?
Cool. One more there. Yep.
Yes. Looking 2 or 3 years into the future, what do you believe to be the main changes and opportunities that will come to the event ticketing space?
Well, I think that it's about being ubiquitous across all platforms, and also being able to be that place where you can go any day or night and find something great to experience. And so, it's much more about access to better live experiences than just going to a site specifically to find tickets. So I think discovery is key. I also think that we have a true opportunity to really connect the world through live experiences and to help people connect with others. And that human connectedness, not just discovering great things to do, but connecting offline with one another. It's strange. It's the currency of that has actually increased now that we are spending more of our time online. It's kind of ironic.
I would maybe just add that as you turn on the television and you have hundreds of channels to watch matches, and you're missing the English soccer match tonight, to see a film, to learn about something, to see all these different categories on television. This should exist for the real life, is that remote to find all these great live experiences that are happening around London or any place in the world, and that is very much the vision of Eventbrite.
Great. I think okay, we've got 1 minute left. Top 10 questions. Anyone? Guys, have a look. What do you think?
Well, the first one, bootstrapping, I'd always recommend bootstrapping. Unless you're putting a rocket into space or creating an electric car, I definitely recommend bootstrapping. If you're not Elon Musk, bootstrap your company. It's where you learn the habits of, it's where you learn the practice of focus around customers, focus around building a great product. And the raising capital could be so alluring and kind of sexy of, I've got to have this money and scale my team up very quickly. And I'll say this, maybe it's a glass half full comment, or maybe I'm in Silicon Valley and you're in London, that capital is more difficult to get out here. But look at that as a blessing, that you've got the opportunity to bootstrap in a time where resources are never more available, where there's more opportunity to find information, use open source software. So get as far as you can and show real results, and the capital will come to you.
Just quickly on capital, I'll finish with one question. You're obviously working with Y Ventures, Sequoia, Tiger, whatever. I mean, Sequoia famously has a Brit at the top of it, but has no presence here. How do you feel about that?
I mean, no comment, dude. We're a portfolio company. What are you excited? I'm just kidding. No, Sequoia's one. I mean, Sequoia has been huge champions of ours. They hold a notoriously high bar for their portfolio companies. I'm sure that they have, thought of coming out here, and I'm not kidding when I say no comment.
No, I mean, clearly they do make investments here, and they do have people on a plane a lot here, but they've decided not yet. Not yet.
I mean, they want to. They're not even. They're just in Silicon Valley.
They have been fast followers in the worldwide scene. So their syndicate fund in China, in India, and so on was later than others. So we'll see.
All right, gentlemen.
You heard it here first. I'm not sure what, but.
Great hand.